Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Hello and Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi, Maseches KIDDUSHIN DAF Samach Beis. We are holding 4 lines from the top of the Amud Bishlema. We're right in the midst of the sugya of Tanai Kafel, which we began yesterday, where according to Rabbi Meir, in order for a Tanai to take hold and be binding, one has to actually duplicate and repeat that condition. He has to say it in the positive and in the negative. If you do this, you'll have this and this. Otherwise, you will not. Because if it doesn't duplicate it, it's not binding. Whereas according to Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, it's unnecessary. Once you cite one half of the coin, the other side of the coin is automatically understood by implication. Says the Gemara on the 4th line, Bishleima, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. So according to him, we can fully understand the pasuk, which is mentioned by the Soita, by the married woman who was suspected of straying and being involved with another man, and the Kohen, in advance of offering her the waters of the Soita, imposes an oath, and he says like this. So the pasuk goes like this. The pasuk says, if you're in fact innocent, you haven't gotten involved with this other man, hinaki, you'll be spared. Melashon of naki, free, clean. You won't have, though, you will not experience this grave consequence and punishment by way of these waters. So all he mentions is the positive angle. If you're innocent, you'll be spared. And he doesn't go into the negative side as well. Well, otherwise you'll really experience a terrible consequence. He doesn't go into that. It's understood. Once he tells her about, the carrot, there's no need to discuss the stick. That works well according to Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, who doesn't need a Tanai Kafel. We don't have to duplicate our presentation. Elo Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, what happened to the other side of the coin? He has to actually stipulate it and verbalize it. We don't just rely on implications. The pasuk should have mentioned the negative side as well. You'll experience that death by sort of choking, by drinking those waters, if in fact you're guilty. What happened to that side of the story? You're right, says the Gemara. The Torah implies both. Amar betanchum heinoki ksiv. You see, instead of writing it hinoki hey yud nun kof yud, says Rashi, it's without the first yud, which implies that there's a drasha laden in this pasuk, and we read it as heinoki as well. So we read it and apply it both ways. In a positive sense, if you're innocent, hinaki, you'll be spared. But then we go and we say hinaki if, and that's the next pasuk of atki satis. If in fact you're guilty, you'll experience the choking consequence. So now Bishlam the Rabbi Meir. So that's very well according to Rabbi Meir. Why the pasuk spells it this way? To indicate that there is a drasha, there's a hidden meaning. This word has a double application. Hainu d'chsiv heinoki without the yud. Elo Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel lamali. So why did the pasuk in fact choose this form of expression rather than just speaking straight out and saying tichye or some other word? Rashi says, which would not, need to be applied both ways. Says the Gemara Itzrich. There is a reason why the Torah picked this lashon. Even according to Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, it's necessary. Perhaps I would say, there are no terrible consequences for an isha that strays. If you're innocent, you'll be cleansed, you'll be spared, you'll walk away free. But if the Torah would not verbalize the negative consequence as well, as per spelling it without the yud, which implies chinaki, if not for that, I would perhaps consider saying that there are no negative consequences. If in fact you were involved with this other man, you know what? It's not recommended, it's not great. Lo hinaki, you're not spared. Lo chinki, you won't, experience this terrible death. Ela isura ba'alma, you've committed an isur. Or according to the Rashash's Gersa, yisurim ba'alma, you'll have hardships. You'll have some consequence not as severe as we expect. That's what I would think. Kamash Malon, that's why the pasuk stresses chiniki. No, there are severe consequences for this type of misbehavior. So even according to Rabbi Chanina, we have to express it clearly. Otherwise, it wouldn't be known. It wouldn't be understood. Continues the Gemara on another topic. It's all well according to Rabbi Meir, who requires duplication and repetition. That's why in the Parshas Chukas, when we speak about the cleansing process brought about by sprinkling the waters of the paraduma, it says it like this, both ways. If in fact this fellow experiences the sprinkling of the paraduma waters on the 3rd and the 7th day of his tumah, he will be cleansed. And then the Torah mentions the flip side. If he does not have this experience, he will not become tar. It's necessary to go through both sides of the coin. Why go through both sides? Just express one aspect and have the other side just implied. Istrich, there's a need. Perhaps I would say, mitzvahs hazah b'shlishi u'b'shvi. Preferably, you do the hazah twice, on the 3rd and on the 7th day. But you know what? Maybe it's only lichatchila. But it's not critical. You don't need both for tahara. Perhaps just having one of these, 3rd or the 7th, is sufficient. B'di'evid. Kamash Malon comes the pasuk and says, no. Not only am I recommending it, it's critical. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Now, why does the Torah have to repeat? This is a kasha on everybody. Why does the Torah have to repeat this whole thing again? Istrich, there's a need. Perhaps I would say that these numbers, 3rd and 7th, are not, critical. Although we spoke about 3rd and 7th, it just means like this. Shlishi, when we say 3rd, Lamut Sheni as opposed to day 2, which is a bit too early. Or when it says Shvi, day 7, Lamut Shishi, as opposed to day 6, the Kamemait, Bimei Tahara, because ultimately he's lessening. He's trimming off from the required days. So basically he's doing it prematurely. On the 2nd instead of the 3rd, on the 6th instead of the 7th, that's why it doesn't work. But let's say he rearranges the days a bit differently. But suppose instead of doing 3 and 7, he does 3 and 8. Perhaps that's even better. The kamapish b'mei tahara, because he's prolonging his cleansing process. Maybe that's even better. Eimer shaper dami. Perhaps that certainly works. Kamashmon. That's why the pasuk has to repeat it. No, when I say 3 and 7, I mean exactly 3 and 7. No changes. There's another pasuk. V'chita yibayim hashvi. So he gets cleansed on the 7th day. Lamadi, what's the point of that repetition? Istrich, there's a point to it. Perhaps I would say, when do we say that you need the double application of the paraduma? That's only with respect to your involvement in karbanos. Aval truma, but let's say he just wants to, touch truma or eat truma. You don't need paraduma twice on you. B'chad na misagya, perhaps one experience is enough. Kamash Malon, no, says the pasuk. You need the paraduma applied on the 3rd, on the 7th. It's critical. And that's the only cleansing process, whether it's for kachim or even for truma. Continues the Mishnah, Makadesh is a Isha. A fellow is Makadesh an Isha, and he says, look, V'amar kosover ha'yisi shei kehenes. I was figuring that she's from a Kayan family. That's what I thought. It turns out that he's mistaken. She didn't mislead him, he misled himself. He discovers that she's a Leviah. Or the other way, Leviah, I thought she was a Leviah. V'harehi kayenes, it turns out she's a kayenes. I thought she was aniyah, she was poor. That's what I wanted. Turns out, surprise, v'harehi ashira, she's wealthy. Or I thought she was wealthy, ashira. V'harehi aniyah, he discovers she is less than wealthy. In all these cases, harezim mukadeshes, it works. You know why? She did nothing wrong. She didn't mislead him. Rather, says Rashi, Elahu hita esatzmoi. He misled himself, and therefore it's his issue. Rashi continues, since he failed to verbalize his intentions, Lav Kol Kamina, he has no power to negate this process. Why? Despite the fact that he was thinking, but he didn't say it. These are unexpressed verbalizations, things that he was thinking and feeling. They're not committal. They don't affect the process. Continues the Mishnah. A fellow approaches an Isha and he says, Harei at mukadeshas li la'achar she'ez gayer. Interesting. This fellow is a non-Jew who cannot do Kiddushin with the Israelis. But he says, look, here's the ring. You're Mekudesh to me when it's going to be applied after I convert. So he intends on becoming a ger. I want it to be activated at that point, at a later date. Or we're going to have many such variations. Or she's pre-gerus. Here's the Kiddushin, which will be chal and activated after you become a ger. La'achar she'eshtachrer. Suppose he's a slave. I want the Kiddushin to take effect after I'm set free by my master. Or addressing a maidservant, he says, look, here's the Kiddushin, pending your release. Or other examples where Kiddushin cannot work right now, but he wants it to be chal at a later date. After your husband passes away and you become unmarried, I want the Kiddushin to happen then. Or after your sister passes away. Basically, this fellow was married to Rachel, and now he approaches Leah and he says, look, after Rachel passes away, I want you to be mine. Or she was a Yavama. Husband died without kids. She's awaiting the chalitza from the Yavam. Until then, she cannot marry. Rashi says we're going with the Shita that Kiddushin cannot be teifis, cannot be applied to a Yavama from a stranger. So he says, look, here's the Kiddushin, pending chalitza. And all these, we say, Eina Mekadeshes, it doesn't work. Why? Says Rashi, Dahavale Dvarim Shalei Bo Lo'ilam. It's an unrealized situation. Va'achshav Ein Biyad Lekacha, in its current form, in his current or her current situation. Kiddushin is not feasible. It's Davar Shalei Bo Lo'ilam. It's not yet here. It's not yet practical. So you can't commit, you can't activate a process on something which is not realistic. Another example. Reuven approaches Shimon and he says, if your wife gives birth to a nekeva, she's mekudesh to me. Once again, it doesn't yet exist. Eina mekudeshes, it doesn't work. And the Mefarshim tell us to skip over to the Gemara. Tanan Hasan. We have a Mishnah, which is a Mishnah in Maseches Terumais, based on the premise that Teruma and Maser only applies to produce which had been picked off the ground, as opposed to something still growing in the ground. There's a machlekes Rashi and Tosfos as to why this is true. Rashi learns because the pasuk says Reishis de Ganacha. You meant to separate from your dagan, from your crop. Dagan is grain, something which had been picked and piled up, took on a grain form as opposed to something still growing off the ground. Tosfos learns it's based on a pasuk. Mi menu, we meant to separate mi menu from that thing which is detached, and that's the source of this halacha. So either way, we're working with a premise that you cannot take something still attached to the ground and consider it truma. Says the Mishnah, Ein Torah min atolosh ala mechuber. So he has some stuff still growing, mechuber, and he has some stuff off the ground, and he says, look, I'm going to use this as truma for that, for the mechuber. It doesn't work, because you cannot be mafresh teruma on mechuber. It's not yet, chayiv in truma. V'im taram, if you did so, ain't truma said truma, doesn't work. Here comes a shaila in this regard. Ba'imine Rav Asi, he asked the question, Mi Rabbi Yehuda. What if a fellow gets up, Amar, and he says like this, Peiros aruga zu telushim, the produce of this patch over here, which had been picked, Yihiyu truma, should be considered truma on what? Al peiros aruga zu mechubarim, on the other patch which is still growing off the ground. Or the other way around. Peiros aruga zu mechubarim, the crop growing over here and still attached, Yihiyu truma should be considered truma al peiros aruga zu telushim, on something else which had been picked, But I don't want the truma to happen now. I know, I'm aware of the fact that you cannot be mafresh teruma on something that's still growing off the ground. I want it to take effect when it's going to be picked. So you're stipulating it in advance, knowing full and well that the activation will only happen when it's picked. Or Rabbi Kiva on the side points out, you could have, for the same money, you could have said, I want the mechubar to be truma on the mechubar, and again with this stipulation, with this addition, likashe yitolsha, when it's picked. And in fact, that's what happened later. It was picked. It was detached. It was cut off the ground. Vinitlashu. Mahu. Question. Does the truma happen right now or not? And Rashi says, the question is whether it happens lemafreya, retroactively. His original hafrasha, does it take effect or not? Amalei Rabbi Yehuda responds with a boom, bam chiddush. Although it had been growing, it was detached and not eligible for truma. But since it was biyadai, Rashi explains on the bottom line, Kol hai shebiyadai, ki hai shebiyadai litlish ulahafresh miyad. It's within his ability to affect this transformation, to pick it off the ground, to cut the weed off the ground. It's within his biyadai to do so. Lav k'mechusar masa dami. We don't view this item as being mechusar masa, severely deficient and incomplete. Basically, what we're saying is, in a sense, he could have very easily picked it off the ground. It was in his control to do so. So he has the ability to activate a process on this item pending its picking, pending its detachment, because he can do it. So therefore, the truma works. Eisvei. So how does this halacha pertain to our sugya, to our mishnah? Because he had a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Asi responds to Rabbi Yehuda. You're telling me something which is within your reach, is considered within your grasp and within your control, and you can manipulate it even at this early stage? Eisvei. Ha'imar le'isha, our mishnah. It tells an isha, riyat mekudesh asli, right? La'achashe is gayer. La'achashet is gairi, right? All those cases. La'achashet is shtachrer. La'achashet is shtachreri. La'achashet yamas balech. La'achashet yamas achaysech. Right? We had all these cases. La'achar shiach le'islechi v'amich. In all these cases we say, no. It's an unrealized dream. It's not yet here. It's not yet tangible. Eina mekudeshes. Now, bishlei makul, I understand that most of these cases are not biyada. He can't control them. Lav biyada. He can't divorce, have this ish divorce. He can't, have her husband die. He can't be megai, right? But there is one case that is within his control to change. Ela ger have a biyada. He can decide to become a ger right now. That's called biyada. So the only problem is that he's not yet a ger. That's called biyada. Why can't he make a kiddushin pending his gerus, which he can bring about? Answer the Gemara, not so simple. Ger nami la biyada. It's not biyada. He needs a whole bezdin to cooperate. Perhaps he'll need a lot of arm twisting and cajoling to get the bezdin to trust him and to go along with his gerus. We need 3 dayanim to officiate during this gerus. And Rashi explains, we need it for the tvila. We need them to inform him of some of the mitzvahs. Tesis disagrees. He says you need the 3 dayanim for the mitzvahs, but for tvila it's only lechatchila. It's not miyakev. But either way, he needs the cooperation of the bezdin. My time why says the Gemara mishpat ksiv bei kiddin. We have the lashon mishpat with respect to gerus. The pasuk says mishpat echad. Yelachem kiger ke'ezrach, says Rashi. So we find mishpat in relation to gerus. Mishpat ksiv bei, it's like a din, like a din Torah, kedin, like a bezdin. And therefore, mi yemar the mizdaka kulei hanit los. Who says he's going to find these 3 dayanim to cooperate? And therefore, it's not called biyadai. It's not in control. And therefore, davar shalei bala ilam. It's not a realistic and tangible, equation. Says the Gemara. Okay, gerus is not biyadai. What about the following case? Maske flora of Abba Bar Mamel El Miata. If you're telling me that anything that's biyadai is considered like it's here. El Miata anisam pruta l'shivchas. What if a slave master turns to his maidservant and says, "Here's a pruta, V'amar hariat mukadeshas li la'achar she'eshach rereich. Here's your condition, which will be chal, which will take effect after I release you. And that's in his hand to do. That's biyadai. It's in his control. Hachanami da'ava kiddushin. Are you going to suppose that it works? Says the Gemara, not necessarily. You know why? Hachiyashta, you can't compare. You can't ask that. A shifcha is so different. It's not just a slight change of status, change of ownership. It's a totally new creature. Initially, the shifcha was like a behema. She was considered a possession of her owner. Whereas after shichra and release, she turns into a totally new entity, an independent being. It's a drastic change of status, and Rashi says, Hilkach, ein mechusar ma'as gadol mizeh. True, he can affect that change, but it's a totally new entity. And therefore, it's unrealistic to initiate a process for the free woman today to have started that process when she was still a behema. She was still considered a shivcha, like a shara or chamar, a possession of her owner. She was a totally new existence. Now she has totally new existence, totally different existence than the previous one. So you can't apply kiddushin to her as a shivcha and have it activated later when she turns into a new being. So it seems like, the guy turning into a yid, the gerus is a slight, not as a severe and drastic change as an eved or a shivcha going free. So over there we suggested that if it would be biyadai, it turns out that it's not biyadai because you need the bezdin, but otherwise we would consider biyadai sufficient enough to activate a process at that early stage, pending gerus. But here by the shivcha, it's a totally new existence, unconnected, unlinked with a previous existence. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so what about Rabbi Ishia's question? What happens if a fellow gives a pruta to his own wife? He's married to her, and he says like this: V'amar tells her, he's currently married. Here's your kiddushin after I divorced you. So I want this kiddushin to be applied after I divorce you. So Rabbi Yeshua says it doesn't work. Why? Because because she's right now married. So this kiddushin has no value today. The only value it could have is if, in fact, he divorces her and she becomes an unmarried woman. So now the kiddushin that's called davar shel olam. It's an unrealized existence. It's not yet here. It's something down the road which doesn't yet exist. That's Rabbi Yishaya's halacha. Question: what would Rabbi Yehuda feel about this case? Hachanami Rabbi Yehuda da'ava kiddushin. So would you propose that according to Rabbi Yehuda, who established this wonderful principle, kol shebiyadai, if it's within your hand, within your control, if it's in your hands, lav k'mechusamasa, we deem it like a reality. So in this case as well, hachanami l'Rabbi Yehuda da'ava kiddushin. Why? Because he can be megarisher, right? It's biyadai to be megarisher. So if it's biyadai, we see it as reality even today, and therefore he can apply a kiddushin for that post-divorce state. Answers the Gemara, no. You know why? I understand that he has full control over divorcing her. He can do that, but he can't force her to remarry him. Biyada lekacha, question mark. Biyada lekacha. Sure, he can divorce her. That's biyada, but he can't force her to remarry him. So that doesn't work. So even Rabbi Yehuda would agree, you can't affect this process. You can't trigger this kiddushin to be applied post-divorce. Continues the Gemara, Tifsha de Rabbi Yeshe. So based on this point that it's not biyadei to be mekadesher at a later date, it would appear that we can provide clarity on Rabbi Yeshe's question as well, which was as follows: a fellow approaches an unmarried woman and gives her 2 rings, 2 prutes, a double deal. So she's not married, so she's eligible for kiddushin. But instead of doing 1 kiddushin, he does a double kiddushin, 1 for now, 1 for later, post-divorce, if he decides to divorce her. Ba'achas, when giving her 1 prute, he tells her, this is for today's kiddushin, ba'achas. And the other one is for the other kiddushin, that's for a kiddushin which will be applied only after I divorce you. Tifshet minod lava kiddushin. So perhaps according to our earlier assumption, it won't work in this case as well, just as in the previous case, because you can't control that eventual kiddushin. It's not biyadei to get her back, so you can't activate a process for that today. Is that so? Is this scenario similar to the previous one? No, says the Gemara. Perhaps there is a distinction. Dilma, perhaps. In contrast to case number 1, a married woman who cannot have kiddushin today. So there we say, well, you can't be mekadesher for the future because of that reason. But here it's different. She is currently unmarried and eligible for kiddushin today. So perhaps you can sort of make a bundle deal, a double kiddushin. Dilma ki'eched tafse kiddushin hashta, tafse nami la'achar kein. She's willing to go through this process with you. Perhaps you can do it. It's not called davar shloi b'la'olam. She's willing. She's a willing partner, and she's right now not married. So perhaps you can make a double kiddushin right now, 1 for today, and 1 for post-divorce. So it's not clear that it doesn't work. We're not sure about that. In any case, Tanya Kavased Rabbi Yechanan, we have a writer Rabbi Yechanan, who says, Kol shebiyadai, something in your hands, lav kemuchasar masadamim. We don't treat it like it's, lacking in reality and tangibility. It's here. And you can activate it, and you can do truma, you could do kiddushin, and have that applied when in fact you make that change, because it's in your hands to make that change. Tanakh said Rabbi Yehuda, we have a right to that concept from a brisa, a tesefta mesachas trumas. Ein Torah min menatol shel mechuber. One may not do truma from something picked off the ground and apply it to something that's still growing. Vim Toram ein truma se truma, and even if it's done, it doesn't work. Ketzad. For example, Amar, he says, Peres arugazu, right? These peres, solution, which have been picked off the ground, Yehu truma al peres arugazu mechuberes, should be truma on the ones that are still growing, or in the reverse. Peres arugazu mechuberes, the one that's still growing should be truma. Yehu truma al peres arugazu tlushin, on the ones that have been picked. Lo yamar klum, it doesn't work, as we explained before. Aval, but if he stipulates that it's only going to be chal when I pick it, when I cut off the wheat. And in fact he did it. It works. That's the right to Rabbi Yehuda. That although in concept you cannot make teruma, you cannot be mekadesh an isha, you can't do any sort of transaction with something that doesn't yet exist, with something that's not yet in its proper format. However, if it's biyadai, if it's within reach, then we see it as a reality which you can manipulate. Continues the brisa, but there's another shita. Yasser al-Kain. Furthermore, Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. You see, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds that you can make a kinyan, you can be mekadesh, even something which doesn't really yet exist. Adam makne davar shele b'lo'olam. This is a totally new shita. See, our Mishnah and our Gemara until this point was based on ein adam makne Davar shelo b'laylam. You can't make a kinyan on something that doesn't yet exist. Rabbi Yehuda came up with a new concept, a new exception to the rule, which is kol shebiyadai. If it's in your control, we see it as a reality. But now we have a totally new shita. Rabbi Yaakov holds like that, and we're going to see tomorrow Be'ez Hashem Rabbi Meir holds like that. You can apply kinyanim and processes to things that don't yet exist. How do you do that? Because you can commit yourself. It's a shibud. It's a personal commitment to give you or to sell you or to buy, even though the item doesn't yet fully exist. The personal commitment suffices to activate that process. So it's a brand new approach, a brand new shita. Yasser al Kain, Amar Blazman Yaakov, Afilu Amar Peros Arugazu Telushin. Even if he points to produce off the ground, and he says these should be truma, al Peros Arugazu Muchaberos, on things that are still growing, or in reverse, Peros Arugazu Muchaberos, truma al Peros Arugazu Telushin. And here's the cash. Likish Yaviu Shlish. We're speaking about, grain, tvua, which has not yet reached even a third of its growth. Hasn't achieved shlish of its growth, which is the minimum threshold for it to be considered tvua with regard to truma. So it's still very young, almost grass. And he says, look, I want to start the truma process today and have it applied when it reaches that, threshold of a third. I want the truma to happen then when it becomes a shlish and it, gets off the ground. And that's what happened. It grew and it was cut off the ground. So the original commitment, the original truma works, dvarav kayam. Why? Because again, according to the shita, you can make hegdish, you can make any sort of process even at that early stage. Now, how early in its growth process can you make this sort of commitment? How underdeveloped can this tvua be and still allow for the truma to happen? Amar Rabba, lo Amar Belezman Yaakov el b'shachas. Even he would agree that you can only do this truma process when it's already achieved shachas, its shachas stage. Meaning it's not yet a shlish. You don't see the developed kernels, but it's already called shachas. Rashi says you can feed it to the animals. It's it's animal food, and therefore it has some sort of significance, some chashivas. Rashi says midid minkar v'chashavu. It's already discernible. It's already partially grown. It resembles tavua, okay? But if it's merely like just young grass, which has no relation to grain, loy, of course you can't apply truma at this early point. That's Rabbi's shita, and Rabbi Yosef takes it a step further. As long as there's something there, it's enough. Rabbi Yosef Amar Filu Ba'agam, even that can be designated as truma according to Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. So you can activate it. You can commit now and activate it, later on. But even agam is sufficient to receive this designation. Agam is that grass, right? My mashma. Where do we find the high agam? The lashon, the word agam, listen to butzlanahu, is describing this sort of grass which slowly rises off the ground and bends over. Listen to butzlanahu. Amar Belazda makra the pasuk halakov. To bend his head like this thing that's bent over. So we see that agmoin describes something soft, pliable, and bendable. Okay, so again, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov maintains you can commit even at this early stage because you can do a kinyan and a hegdish on davar shloi ba'olam. How early in the game? Well, according to Rabbah, it must be at least shachas. To Rabbi Yosef, even younger than that, even just in its grass form. Now, Kaman Asla Hadasanyo. We have a brisa, and we want to know which shita does this brisa match up with. Ha'imel Chavere. Reuven approaches Shimon. Right? If you have a girl, she's mekudesh to me. Lo yamar klum. There's no kiddushin. because it's loy bal it's pre-existence. But Reb Chanina comes and adds a point to this halacha. In some cases it works. If it's already discernible, it's already somewhat an entity of existence. It doesn't work only because his wife is not yet pregnant. But if she's already pregnant, the Kiddushin can work. Why? Because even though it's loy bal olam, it's not yet a real existence. But according to Rabbi Yaakov, a process, a commitment, a Kiddushin, a kinyan can be applied even on something which is not yet a reality. So according to Rabbi Chanina, the ibur, the fact that she's muberes, changes the equation. Says the Gemara Kiman. Ikaraba kashehukar ubra. Ikarab Yosef afa b'shalahukar ubra. So basically, we're assuming that Rabbi Chanina is following Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that you can do a kinyan on davar shel loy bal olam, and therefore we say that if it's already somewhat in existence, even though it's not yet a reality, you can make a kiddushin. But the question is, how discernible, how advanced does the entity have to be? So it depends. Come on, Ikar Rabba Kishuka Ubra. If Rabbi Chanina is in line with Rabba's interpretation of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, then just like Rabba required the Tvua to have reached its Shachas stage, where it's really something that resembles true grain, here as well, Hukar Ubra. The Uber, the fetus, has to be discernible and noticeable. And since it achieved that, that advanced stage, already arrived at that point, it's sufficient to make the Kiddushin. But if it would be less than that, if it would be undiscernible, then it wouldn't be considered a reality with respect to Kiddushin. However, Ikar Rav Yosef, if Rabbi Chanina would in fact follow Rav Yosef's interpretation of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, where he said even if it's agam, if it's just in its grass form, it would be enough. So in this case of the Isha, even if the Uber is not yet discernible, that would be enough to make Kiddushin. If it turns out that she was Muberes, the Kiddushin is Chal, even though it's not yet advanced to the point that it's discernible. So basically, we're lining up Rabbi Chanina with Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, and we're matching up the concept, just like by the Tvua, according to Rabbi. It needs to be in its more advanced stage in order for it to work here as well. You need Muberes. According to Rabbi Yosef, it's not necessary. V'yikadamri, here comes version number 2 of Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, which is a bit more machmer. All agree. You need some form of reality. It has to resemble, in the case of the Tvua, it has to resemble grain. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that it has to be shachas, ela b'shachas. And which type of shachas? Ela b'shachas the veikivsha. It had to have achieved the stage of shachas. That's the animal feed. So the grain had to have advanced to that, at least to that stage. And it has to be shachas the veikivsha growing in a beis habal. Rashi says shadai b'megishamim. Some fields have to be watered manually, otherwise they dry up. And in some cases, you're lucky and rainwater is sufficient. So if this shachas is growing in a naturally watered, rain-watered field, then it's pretty certain that the shachas will develop properly and won't dry up. So in that case, we say it's enough of a reality which allows for truma and allows for the process to be applied. Aval b'shachas to be shakuloi, but if the shachas is growing in this field, it has to be constantly watered. There's no knowing how this thing is going to develop, and therefore, it's not yet here enough. It's not yet a reality enough, and even according to Yaakov, you can't deal with it. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Once it achieved its shachas state, whether it grows here or there, it doesn't matter. Afilu b'shachas to be shakya, even if it's growing in this manually watered field, it would work. And now, let's go back to the case of the mu'beres. Kiman ozla hadasanya. So what about the brayso, ha'imra chavera, yim yoldish techan nekeva, right? If your wife has an nekeva, mekadesh leishis, mekadesh temilam, rakuma doesn't work. V'amr chaninu chaninu tells us, lo yishano lo she'inish mu'beres. When doesn't it work? She's not mu'beres. So there's nothing to talk about, right? But if it turns out she's mu'beres, so there's something to talk about. Dvarav kayamim, the kiddushin gets activated at that point. So now, question: how would Rabbi learn this halacha? How would Rabbi Yosef learn the halacha? Kiman kishu k'ubra v'divrei hakoil. So either we're speaking that the uber is noticeable. Sorry, so this is a statement. Kiman kishu k'ubra v'divrei hakoil. It must be that according to Rabbi Chanina, the ishtu mu'beres is not enough unless the uber is noticeable and discernible. And this jives with both shittas. Both Rab and Rabbi Yosef require some sort of noticeability, some sort of tangibility. Just like by the grain, you need at least shachas. All agree, just in its grass form, agam is worthless. It's not enough of a reality to speak of. So all agree you need at least shachas. The question is, what level shachas? A more secure shachas, even a less secure shachas. But all agree it has to be discernible and something of a reality. Likewise, in mu'beres, all would agree, both Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef would agree, you need to be mu'beres and hukar ubra to allow for kiddushin to be applied. Okay, so in summation, we started with Tanai Kafel. We had some kashas from various psukim, why the Torah had to mention both sides of the coin. We explained it according to Rabbi Meir and according to Rabbi Chanina and Gamliel. We proceeded with the Mishnah, various cases of davar shaloi b'lo olam. You can't make a conclusion on that. Rabbi Yochanan is mechadish. He introduces this new concept called kol biyadai. If it's in your control, then we treat it as a reality. We had several variations of that halacha regarding a shivcha, regarding gerushin and kiddushin. Proceeded with Rabbi Yehuda Yaakov Shita that even a davar shaloi b'lo olam, completely non-existent or almost non-existent, can undergo a halachic process like kinyan and kiddushin or truma, but even that has its limits. We have two versions. In version 1, Rabbah says, well, regarding the grain with respect to truma, it has to have at least the shachas form. Agam is not enough. Rabbi Yosef says even agam works. In version number 2, all agree agam is insufficient. To allow for truma to be chal, you need shachas. According to Rabbah, a more advanced form of shachas, a more secure form of shachas. According to Rabbi Yosef, even a less secure form of shachas works. Now regarding kiddushin of an isha mu'beres, do we need hukar ubra or not? Does it have to be discernible or not? So according to the first version, it's totally in the machlekes Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. According to Rabbah, it has to be discernible. According to Rabbi Yosef, it doesn't, just like the grass. Whereas according to version number 2, all agree there has to be some discernibility, and therefore by the isha mu'beres, the kiddushin will only work, even according to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, when it's hukar ubra. All the best to you and hatzlacha, Rabbah.